complications. Couldn't have done it without you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Yvonne, for helping with that.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the first board meeting for the 2022-2023 season. I'd like to welcome both returning board members and new board members. And we're very excited to have our very first meeting of the 2022-2023 board. And so we're going to get started. Erica did roll as she enabled people into the meeting, and she has notified us that we do have a quorum. So we are gonna next review tonight's agenda. You can tell by looking at it that we have a rather packed meeting, including public input, review of our minutes from last month, a few contracts to review, and then we will have a rather lengthy and important closed session board training for both new and returning board members associated with understanding board governance, the conflict of interest policy, and that is provided by us courtesy of Enright Ogletree Associates, of whom we have members this evening with us. So welcome all, and welcome attendees as well, and also welcome our esteemed SGPRC staff. Are there any other changes to the agenda from board members that we need, any changes to the agenda from board members? Hearing and seeing none, we will move forward. The very first item that we have is to review our minutes from June 22nd. You've had those in your packet. They've been available online as well. So do we have any changes to the minutes from June 22nd? Hearing and seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the minutes as written?
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes as written.
Thank you, Bill. Do we have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Preeti. All those, any more discussion of the minutes before we move forward? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes as written, please say aye or raise your hand. Aye.
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 Any opposition to the minutes? Any abstention to the minutes?
I abstain.
Thank you, Julie. Joseph is abstaining as well. Great, great. All right. So the motion carries as voted, and we move on to our next agenda item. The next agenda item, in concert with our monthly meetings, is general public input. I'm going to turn that over to our esteemed colleagues who will also do the training this evening, Ms. Judith Enright and Aaron Abramovitz, who will be running the public input for the evening. Judith and Aaron, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So before voting on matters which are up for consideration, we'd like to open the meeting for public comment. But because of the higher than usual number of individuals who signed up to speak tonight, we are allotting 2 minutes to each person. We feel that it's important that the board hear from as many people as possible and still be able to cover the agenda items. So we are also asking everyone to respect client confidentiality and general rules of civility. If an individual goes beyond the bounds of civil discourse, that person's microphone will be cut off. If an individual simply restates something that has been said before, their time for comment will be shortened. After 2 minutes, the time for comment will end. So I have a list so far of 14 individuals, and the first person to sign up is Carl Argila.
Okay, as I'm sure you're aware, we have had some difficulty in connecting on Zoom, and I'm not seeing my image on Zoom. However, board, once again, as you know, my name is Carl Argila. I am the father of Cavan Argila, an intellectually disabled deaf adult. And my comments to the board this evening are being recorded under the provisions of the Bagley-Keene Act that will be posted for public review at www.sgprc.net. First Amendment Coalition has asked that they be informed if there's any restrictions on recording meetings. And as you know, Mr. Abramowitz, on June 8th, San Gabriel Pomona Regional Center became my son Cavan's conservator after a 3.5-year probate court battle. My son is now living the life of an institutionalized person. He's denied the love and freedom of which he enjoyed with his family. No employment, no activities day to day. My son has requested that the San Gabriel Pomona Regional Center terminate his conservatorship so that his family can provide his care. Once again, for the minutes of this meeting, I'm requesting that the official minutes of this board meeting accurately state that I'm requesting that the San Gabriel Pomona Regional Center terminate their conservatorship of my son, Cavan Argila. Thank you for your time this evening, board.
Thank you. And next up is Felicia Ford.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you everyone for having us. I appreciate being on tonight. I know that we have a 2-minute limit, but we have to get into some very heavy subject matter here. The board is operating or has operated from May of 2022 until June of 2022 outside of its own bylaws. They didn't even have enough people to not only not have a quorum, but they shouldn't have been making those decisions because they were illegally acting as a full board. And everyone knew this, including the board, the then board president and everyone else. We need to understand when you guys are going to respond to these issues, when matters will get back to normal so people can actually have the freedom of engaging in these meetings as full community participants. And we have waited and waited and waited just to get some reasonable amount of response, and no one's doing anything, and we're not going to go away. We just want a reasonable response to what's being done. And then we ask that management and leadership be held to full accountability for the things that have happened. We need to understand how and when and why these things happen and when things are going to get better. And marginalizing people by not offering a full meeting, even by Zoom, is just ridiculous. It's a shame. I don't even see any Black people on this whole panel, none. And at least you're minimally required to have one person. No one's addressed that, even though everyone slipped in old board members from the past. We're still sitting here looking like, when are things really going to be fair and equitable? This is not the way that things are supposed to be done. I see board members right now on their phones. I see Dr. Giselle Ragusa looking down constantly every meeting that she's on. You guys don't even pay attention to what the community has to say, and things weren't like this before. And we're just really sad and disheartened. We're upset, and we just don't appreciate this. There's a better way to do things, and you guys not listening is not going to resolve this. And I'm glad to see you smile, but it's not funny, Gigi. It's inappropriate. It's just inappropriate. Everyone's texting each other during meetings. We look at this stuff and we can see what's going on behind the scenes. There's not one Black person here. You guys don't think enough of the Black community to even be inclusive. You're only required to have like 1 or 2 probably, and you can't even do that. And this is simple. You guys hurry, switched roles and slap people.
Your time is up. Thank you. Next up is Tracy Evanson.
Hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm a parent of an adult consumer at San Gabe with a diagnosis of cerebral palsy, and intellectual disability. And I have huge concerns about the integrity of the board. As a decision was made to remove the executive director without the legal number of board members. And what's further concerning is that knowing that they're operating out of non-compliance, they move forward anyway. And I just really want everyone to know that the trust has been broken with individuals, with family members, community partners. And this board does not make decisions in the best interest of my daughter and family. We're a Black family who's not even represented here in the board, like Felicia just mentioned. 0% Black representation, only 7% Hispanic representation, while serving more than 50% of individuals who are Hispanic. That's a violation. And to know people of color have applied and were not able to access full board, that's discrimination against people of color. And it's just sad. And that it seems like they choose to remain to be non-compliant than to add persons of color to the board. And the interactive community meetings serve as a space for accountability and transparency, which has been taken away from the community, further confirming the intent to operate secretly and illegally. And there's so many questions that have been asked and not acknowledged, nor addressed, nor rectified. The webinar style is not a person-centered approach. There's limited accommodations for consumers and people who can't communicate this way. I would like to recommend more transparency and teamwork. And I'm just uncomfortable with the current board representation as it stands, minus consumers and the vendor representation. But I would also like to recommend bringing back interactive community meetings to engage the community and for accountability purposes. And
Thank you.
also,
Your
if
time
there's
is up.
DDS representation.
And next we have Elizabeth Cuevas.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I'm so sorry that I'm a little bit late to the meeting. Greetings, everyone. Greetings, board. I'm happy to see people that I know. Hi, Bruce. And
Hey, Les.
those people. Thank you for your service. I wanted to discuss the recent changes in the meetings. And as a board member, as a prior board member, I felt like my voice was counted and heard. And now as a parent, when I enter the meetings, my questions and my comments sometimes are not acknowledged or read aloud, and I don't get any feedback. I've attended 3 meetings during the past few days, and none of my questions were acknowledged, and I didn't get any response. I feel like currently parents and consumers are not being respected as stakeholders, and because they're being limited in their ability to speak or even type in. Sometimes there's no closed captioning, so there's no way that the consumers and the families can work collaboratively and sort of add their voice to any of the discussion. We feel like we're audience members more than, participants working together. And we feel like currently it's kind of running like staff meetings or informational meetings, and we're just audience members. And really, consumers are the primary voices here at the Regional Center. And right now it seems like they don't have their voice. They're not being heard. So families step in, and I'm here advocating for consumer families at the Regional Center. And I feel like the board right now is not representative of their needs and their wants right now. We've never been sent a survey, a questionnaire on behalf of the board asking us, what we need, how do we feel best supported. Ms. Sheila James, at the last meeting that she participated in, stated that they had been working very hard to find possible board members, but we never received anything like an email about.
Thank you. Your time is up. And next up is Valerie Donaldson.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm not gonna take long, so you don't have to tell me my time is up. Board members, along with the corporate attorneys, wrote the bylaws, which have been violated. There has been inequity, systemic racism, disparity, and dishonesty exhibited. As the board has displayed poor leadership, the ratio was 8 members. The bylaws require 9. And with poor leadership, I don't think we can trust anyone that's in poor leadership. And I think those who were in leadership and using poor judgment should resign. That's all I have to say. That's my 2 minutes, and thank you.
Thank you. Next is Bertha Monterey.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Bertha Monterey. I have 2 children that are consumers at the Regional Center. And this is my first time at this meeting. And I had questions more than comments because this is my first time. And it's nice to see that we have a full house today. And I was just wondering, how does the board work? And how does it function? And how does it help support the community and the Regional Center? And how does it work as a bridge to help initiatives go through? So that's like a multi-layered question that can possibly be answered by somebody on the board. And then I hear a lot of concerns, and I just want to know how the board will be addressing all these concerns. And those are my 2 questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And next up is Maria Ramirez.
Okay, am I unmuted now?
Yes, you are.
Okay, good. My name is Maria Ramirez. I'm a member of Families United for Equity up in the Bay Area. Our group was formed in the wake of the COVID pandemic and the basically poor to non-existent response by our regional center of the East Bay to reimagine services, supports, and assistance during COVID, because our board and our regional center was dismal. I mean, they sent millions back. Many parents, providers, and vendors are looking throughout all of the 21 regional centers because we are questioning the status quo. And you seem to be part of the status quo, even though what we heard as parents that San Gabriel was doing to still continue services for the community during COVID was like an eye-opener for us. We were hungry to hear, oh my God, you can reimagine services. You can still aim to diminish racial equities. And then to hear how your board, you as board members acted to disrupt that. Do you know that you were a model for so many of us looking for a way, not you, but what the program did to continue services during COVID is a model that we wanted shared, not broken up, not dismantled. What you are doing, what you represent as board members is complicity in the continuing racial disparities that are historic. You know, you had an opportunity by what your regional center was doing during COVID to be a model, and you stopped that.
Thank you. Your time is up. And next up is David Bernstein. David Bernstein? You should be able to participate.
Have you not been hearing me?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Have I been off the whole time or when?
Yes, we couldn't hear you.
Excuse me, since we have multiple people mention certain things. Anyway, I've been a vendor and an advocate for over 35 years. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Throughout the past three administrations, and the board's actions last month shocked the consumers, family, and vendors who were very appreciative of the way the regional center had been operating and were exceedingly pleased with the leadership. Tonight, I'm speaking out for the many vendors and community members who are afraid to make their remarks public for fear of retaliation or retribution. And I personally always urge people to speak out themselves. Yet I do understand their fears. We want to believe that our regional center is faithfully following its bylaws and operating at all times. And we want to see the board operate in full transparency also. We had an amazing bond that had been created in a few short years. And I've never heard so many people so positively describe how it felt to be a vendor now with SGPRC compared with how it felt for the 20, 30, or 40 years that folks have been around. And it was something truly wonderful, and it's sad, exceedingly sad that the board did not recognize how the community felt, truly felt, and how this great bond that had been created has been dissolved. So it's really up to you. You've made your work much harder, but you obviously need to spend a little more time listening to the community and engaging with the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, Indy Bavsar, please excuse pronunciation. And correct me. Indy Bavsar? Are you there and able to participate? Let's go on to Fatima Worthington and come back. Fatima Worthington?
I'm here.
Thank
you. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Hi. So my name is Fatima Worthington, and I've been a parent, and my son is a consumer of the San Gabriel Pomona Regional Center. We've been with San Gabriel Pomona Regional Center for the last 25 years. And back in 2019, I did, want to join the board member, join as a committee or on the board. I was, made aware by Mr. Hill that perhaps that, the committees didn't have enough, people on it. And he suggested that perhaps I should go ahead and, interview, do some volunteer work for the San Gabriel Pomona Regional Center. And at that time, I went ahead and, interviewed or, had a meeting with Dr. Ragusa and the team. And I was told by Erica Gomez that this is volunteer work for, SGPRC, and that nobody is turned down. I was turned down. After 25 years of being a parent and advocate, having 2 fair hearings against the regional center, having had, taken Medi-Cal to fair hearing, being, dealing with durable medical equipment companies, I suggested that maybe perhaps whatever committee I can be useful in, whether that be the vendorization committee, the strategics committee, I was open to just helping. And I was denied, being a volunteer for the first time. And, and Dr. Ragusa, took maybe 2 or 3 weeks to respond. I kept calling Erica saying, did they decide on which placement I should be in or where I could best be, useful for? So I don't see anybody representing the Filipino community. And I feel like definitely I was discriminated against because they couldn't give me any answers as to why I wasn't accepted, other than they have no use for me.
Thank you. Luis Cuevas. Luis Cuevas. Okay, we'll come back and give.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hi, sorry about that. I don't know what happened to the device. Thank you for your time and thank you for all your hard work. And those of you that are volunteering as members of the board, thank you. My son has been a consumer for over 17 years. And we've always had a relationship with the regional center. And sadly, though, I'm here tonight echoing some of the same concerns that previous speakers have already mentioned. But to go on a different route, one of the concerns that I have, it was mentioned that we have a full house tonight. We don't know how many people are really at the meeting. I suppose you do, since you went ahead and switched the meetings into this format. But when are we going to go back to in person? I think we need to have some face-to-face discussions, and you can see the pain that you're causing. As a member of an all dads a group for children with special needs, and all the fathers get together because we experience our child's disability in a different way. It's really sad to hear that you're being described now as the evil empire, as opposed to the helping partner that once was. It's really concerning. And then concerns are being raised, they're being mentioned at these meetings, and they're not being discussed. There's nothing in the newsletters, what's gonna happen. There's so many serious issues that are being brought up that we're not hearing an answer to. It's sad to think that someone is manipulating, someone is trying to take control. I keep hearing Dr. Ragusa's name as someone who thinks she owns the regional center or
Thank you, that's, your time is up. Sonia Henrik. Sonia Henrik. We can come back to her. Cami Poulos. Cami Poulos.
Just so you know, it's taking a long time for the mic to show up. That's probably why people aren't responding.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Alvarez, Madam Chair and board members. I am here with my son, William, who is an adult consumer. We were shocked and saddened that Mr. Hill's contract was not renewed. The only way we found out was at the virtual meeting. My family received no formal notice of this change, and how the regional center would proceed. I'm not sure how families and individuals served will be given a voice if they are not aware of the change in the executive director and how the regional center will move forward throughout this process. In the future, my family and I would like to see a list of board members with their bios and contact information on the website. Because if they are our voice, we want to know a little bit more about them, and we would like to know how to contact them. My son, who is a consumer, has just informed me he would like to speak. I don't know if that's allowed, because he has never talked at the board meeting before. May he speak?
Sure.
Hi, I'm Will. Hi, Susan. I've been informed about this through a family friend of ours and my mother. And I work at Goodwill, and I have a very good case worker, and they're amazing to me. I'm amazing to them. I've been a part of you guys since I was an infant, you guys. I'm making myself clear right now. I do not want my job and the people who help me live my life independently taken away from me. If they do, you'll be hearing. That's all I have from me. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Kiana Dobson.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, good evening, everyone. And I kind of have to go with everyone, well, not everyone, but some that spoke with the sentiment of not having any African Americans on the board. And just scrolling through and going to the Zoom right now, I didn't see any. And please let me know if I missed anyone. So there's a disparity there. It's a shame that I have to write down what I need to say because I have a certain amount of time. So I'm going to go ahead and read it. It says, parents and clients and community members have not been allowed to speak freely at any meeting since the change in executive directors. The new format for online community meetings limits the client participation and functions more like a staff meeting. Staff is selecting which questions they are choosing to answer and do not read all the questions posed by the community, limiting all of us of information and of our voice. Clients and families have their hands raised, but are never called on for the entire meeting. And this just goes to show that this is what's going on right now. I tried to get in several times, I couldn't get in. It appears that there is an abuse of power. I'm a person in the community, I've been in the community for 33 years. I also thought it was disheartening to see that there was a class that was supposed to be given for the deaf community. I haven't seen that. I don't see anyone in here interpreting for the deaf community. The chat is disabled, so how would they be able to even see or how are you guys going to communicate with them? If you guys go through and scroll after this meeting and look at yourselves, some of you guys even look disgusted yourself. Some of you look dismayed. Some of you look appalled. Some of you look like you're very upset. And I'm quite sure you guys all don't know what to do right now, but I think collectively you should come with the community. You should speak to the vendors, the families, the consumers, and hear everybody's take. Come to the table and work together. Right now, it appears that you guys are working against the community. You are working against the families. You are working against the vendors. You are working against the workshops. This is a collective thing. We want them to be independent. Some are. Thank you.
So is Sonia Heinrich available now? And if you're having some trouble speaking, could you raise your hand? Is Indy Bavsar available now? Again, if you're having trouble speaking, could you raise your hand? Is there anyone who hasn't been called on who has requested to speak this evening?
No, ma'am.
Is there anyone who feels called upon to speak now who hasn't spoken? Okay, I have 5 participants raising hands. All right, we've got to move on because we've got so much to do this evening that we simply can't continue because otherwise we won't get anything done. So thank you very much for your participation.
Thank you very much, everyone, for the public input. And now we're going to go on to a strategic development report and action item from Bill Stewart, please.
Thank you, Gigi, and good evening, everyone. In my role as a board officer and member of the Strategic Development Committee, I'm pleased to report tonight is an election night. And pursuant to the bylaws and our agenda, as you're aware, at our June meeting at the Board of Directors, we put together a slate of 2 officer candidates were nominated by the Strategic Development Committee and put forth as a slate of officers. The first is Giselle Ragusa as president, and the second is Julie Chetney as first vice president. So first, do I have a motion and a second for the election of Giselle Ragusa as board president?
I motion for Gigi to be board president.
Thank you so much, Preeti. Do I have a second?
Bill, I will second that motion.
Thank you, Trish. We will now proceed to a vote. All in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay or raise your hand. Thank you, Susan. Any abstain? Thank you. Carried. A second, do I have a motion and a second for Julie Chetney as first vice president?
I will make that motion, Bill.
Thank you, Trish.
For vice president.
Thank you, Trish. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Aye.
Thank you, Joseph. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed, please say nay or raise your hand. And any abstain? Carried. Thank you very much. The second action item I have is to present for board approval Richard Santero to become a member of the Advisory Committee for Individuals Served and Their Families.
Okay, so do I have a motion to approve Richard Centeno, who was interviewed by the Strategic Development Committee during this month for that committee? Do I have a motion to approve him for that?
I'll make that motion, Gigi, please.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you very much. All those in favor of approving Richard Santero to become a member of the Committee for Individuals Served and Their Families, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any oppositions to that committee membership? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Congratulations to Richard. We look forward to working with him on the Committee for Individuals Served and Their Families. Thank you, Bill, for your report. Okay, moving on to the next agenda item. We have a couple of contracts to review, And the first one is with Columbus. Hortensia Tafoya will be reviewing that with us. And as a reminder, the Executive Finance Committee has already reviewed that. That contract is in your meeting packet, and the committee has recommended that this contract move forward for board review and full board review and approval. Hortensia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Gigi. Good evening, everyone. Just wanted to let you know the reason for requesting this. We are having a recruitment challenge with clinical staff. We are trying to find nursing staff, speech therapists, psychologists. Contracts are set up through our purchase of service system, and we have found that due to inflation, we are struggling to find staff who will meet those needs of the individuals that we're working with. And so we project that we're going to surpass that threshold that we have with that contract. And this is sort of a preventive measure that we're asking here. If you would allow us that flexibility to go a little bit over that contract amount. And as Gigi shared, that information is already in your packet, but if you'd like, I can share the contract with you at this time.
Thank you, Hortensia. I'm assuming that the board members did have a chance to review it, and therefore, do we have any questions relating to the contract? And seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the contract as reviewed and discussed by Hortensia this evening?
I make a motion to approve the contract.
Thank you, Pretty. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Bill. Any more discussion of the contracts before we call for the vote? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor of approving the contract as presented by Hortensia this evening, please say aye and raise your hand or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Any opposition to this contract? Any abstentions to the contract approval? Thank you, Susan. Okay, motion carries. On to our next contract. This is a contract
I think Gigi froze.
also in your packet.
You froze there for a second, Gigi, so I think you were trying to introduce Dara.
Yes, I certainly was. Apologies for that. Dara will be reviewing the CAS contract in Lucina Galarza's stead. The contract, once again, was reviewed and recommended for full review of the board by the Executive Finance Committee. So Dara will be presenting that contract. It's also been in your meeting packet. The floor is yours, Dara. Thank you so much.
Thank you, President Ragusa and fellow board members. Yes, I'm presenting this evening on CAS, which is Community Advocates and Support Services. They provide supportive living services to our adult individuals, and this contract is up for renewal, and we are asking that the board approves this contract so that we can continue with the service moving forward. So thank you.
Are there any questions regarding the contract from board members? Hearing and seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the contract as presented by Dara Mikesell?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Trish. Do we have a second?
I second that motion.
Thank you so much, Julie. All those in favor of approving the contract as presented this evening, please say aye and or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any oppositions to this particular contract? Any abstentions to the contract? Thank you. Motion carries. Okay, there is one more financial related contract, and that will be co-presented by Dara Mikesell and Roy Duranila. The floor is yours.
Good evening, board members and guests.
I'm turning this over to Dara to report our latest financials for the month of June. Dara, you have the floor.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Roy. Hello again. And I would like to present the, and is it okay if I share my screen?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay. So as you can see, hopefully you can see my screen. These are copies of our operation and purchase of service monthly financial reports for the month of May 2022 for fiscal year 21-22 for your review and approval. This is a summary of our operations budget. You can see here that our salary and fringe benefits is pretty comparable to last year's. And that is about 30 million for this year and 27 million from last year. Our operating budget is at 6 million. It's very similar to last year's. And our family resource center, sorry, I'm trying to remember the acronym for this. The Family Resource Center is very similar to last year's budget as well. And then the CPP's DC closure, it's pretty similar to our spendings from last year. And for our purchase of service, you'll see here that our out-of-home is 122 million. And then last year's was 109 million. Day programs was 79 million opposed to last year, which was 75 million. Transportation at 11 million, very close to what we spent last year, a little bit less. Respite costs are similar, but a little bit lower than, or a little bit higher than last year. And other services are pretty similar to what we had the prior year. Is there any questions regarding our operations or purchase service?
Yeah, Dara, what falls under the heading of other services?
Okay, so other services, if I can move on to the next page, let me see 1 second. You can see here in other services that is categorized as non-medical, home care, transportation contracts, prevention, other authorized services, personal and incidentals, hospital care, medical equipment, medical services, which is professional services like physical therapy, pharmaceutical services, perhaps RN services, LVN, dentistry, speech pathology, things of that nature. Medical services programs, also in-home respite and out-of-home respite in camps fall into those other services.
Okay, got it.
And then here is, this is just a more detailed report of the spreadsheet, or the graphs that were presented initially. And so this is just more of a drill down of those costs. Does anyone have any questions?
Dara, hi, this is Julie. Can you go back to the first bar graph that we saw?
Certainly.
Thank you. I'm curious, out of home, I'm wondering the slight disparity between the last 2 fiscal years, whether that had anything to do with the pandemic at all.
It could. What we have seen, especially in terms of our residential homes, actually, our residential as well as our day program, there isn't a whole lot of movement as we've seen in years past. I think that people are still a little hesitant with sending their loved ones back to program or to a residential situation. So we have seen a reduction in referrals to both residential and day programs.
Wonderful,
so
thank you so much.
That accounts for a lot of that.
Yeah, that answers my question. Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anyone else have any other questions?
Hearing and seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the financial report presented by Dara this evening?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Julie. I'm assuming, Bill, you'd like to second.
I would be delighted to. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Any more questions before we move to vote for this important financial report? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor of approving the financial report as presented, please say and/or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Any oppositions to this report? Any abstentions to this report, please raise or say, okay, great, thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank
And
you. Thank you, Dr. Ragusa. The second item on our financial report is, as you know, is the, we're requesting approval for the full board through the preliminary allocation. And of course, this year's contract as part of that. So I think it's in your packet or it's in the Google Drive as part of your documents. So we are highly recommending that we approve our allocation for this year and as well as the contract this year. And authorize Dr. Ragusa to sign the contract.
Thank you very much, Roy. Do we have any questions regarding the allocation contract that has been in your packet for several weeks, actually? Hearing and seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the contract as provided?
I move we approve the contract as provided.
Thank you, Bruce. Do I have a second?
I will second.
Thank you, Bill. Any other questions associated with the discussion associated with the contract before we move to vote? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor of approving the contract as provided, please say aye and/or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any oppositions to approving the contract? Any abstentions to approving the contract? Thank you very much. Motion carries. I did want to say a few words about our dear colleague, Roy. This will be his official last board meeting as the CFO of San Gabriel Pomona Regional Center. And we want to thank him and celebrate him as he led us through the past several years, in addition to having served in a consultative role before that. So if we can all give Roy a hand and thank him for his service, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, Roy.
Thank you. Thank you, Roy. It's been a pleasure.
Everything. We have very much appreciated all of your hard work and all of your mentorship of others and guidance of us. So thank you so much, Roy, for your service, and happy retirement to you and your family.
Thank you.
Okay. Automatically muted myself by accident. Here we go. So the very next agenda item that we have on our board agenda is are moving on to the board training. And as you will recall from the agenda, this is a two-part training provided by our legal consultants in addition to other members at their request. And so this ends the open session of the board meeting, and we will now move on to the board training. We thank everybody for their attendance, for their input, and anything else that they like to share. And we will see you all next month. Board members, please stay on, and we will move to closed session.
So may I proceed, Gigi?
Not yet. We still have attendees that are present from the attendee group. Hold one moment, please.